This is Newsweek.com. A popular diet regimen, intermittent fasting. Probably most of you have heard about this. If not, it'll kind of go. We'll talk about it more in the article, but this is by Jess Thompson. Weight loss by intermittent fasting can alter your brain activity. The weight loss method of intermittent fasting, or also known as intermittent energy restriction, involves switching between days of eating normally and days of fasting. Researchers found that this diet can affect the interplay between brain activity and the gut microbiome, the collection of good bacteria living in your gut. Understanding these relationships, the team said, could shine a light on the factors involved in the successful dieting and maintaining a healthy weight. The full findings of those studies were published in the journal Frontiers in Cellular and Infection Microbiology. Quote, the composition of the gut microbiome is greatly influenced by dietary choices. Professor Qiang Zheng, a researcher at the Health Management Institute of the PLA General Hospital in Beijing, told Newsweek. Quote, altering one's dietary habits leads to changes in the microbiome's compositions. Other studies have also demonstrated that intermittent fasting can both modify both the diversity and composition of the gut microbiome. Zhang and colleagues on the team monitor the gut microbiome, blood, and brain activity of 25 Chinese adults with an average of 27 years. All the participants were obese with a body mass index, or a BMI, between 28 and 45. A person is considered obese if their BMI is over 30. So it's basically just your weight to your height ratio. For myself, I do think I would classify as overweight. I'm not obese yet because of my weight and my height, but that value can be thrown off because of the amount of muscle that you have. Like most bodybuilders are by far and away obese based on the BMI metric. So there is some pros and cons to this. Zhang and colleagues on the team monitor the gut microbiome, blood and brain activity of these adults, and obesity is a major risk factor, obviously. In the study, each participant underwent two dietary phases, a high controlled fasting phase and a low controlled fasting phase. During the high controlled fasting phase, participants spent 32 days receiving meals from dietitian that slowly decreased in calorie count to around 1/4 of their basic energy needs. For 30 more days after this, they underwent the low-controlled fasting phase, where they were given a list of recommended foods designed to give the woman only 500 calories each day and the men 600 calories each day. Following these fasts, the participants were found to have lost an average of around 17 pounds, roughly 7.8% of their average body weight. The authors also found that the patient's microbiomes changed, with some bacterial species increasing sharply in these numbers, while others, including Escherichia coli, fell. E. coli is a common bacterium, and some strains cause sickness as diarrhea, urinary tract infections, respiratory illness, and pneumonia. Significant alterations were observed in certain gut bacteria abundances due to the IER diet, including pathogenic E. coli, as well as obesity-related probiotics, whatever that word is, parabacterides, diastones, and these are other probiotics that are related to obesity. However, it should be noted that data regarding the gut microbiome is extensive. Therefore, further research is required to explore scientific microbial populations involved in weight loss. The researchers reported that certain regions of the brain associated with the regulation of appetite and addiction saw decreased activity levels after the fast, and said this was a result of the microbiome change. Now they have to prove that it's because of that. So, but we'll continue on reading. The team found that a high abundance of some bacteria, including E. coli, was associated with reduced activity in the region of the brain that plays a role in willpower when losing weight. Interesting. They also found that an abundance of other species of bacteria was positively correlated with increasing activity in brain regions associated with attention, motor inhibition, emotion, and learning. Quote, the gut microbiome is thought to communicate with the brain in a complex two-directional way, said paper co-author Jianing Wang of the Institute of Geriatrics at the PLA General Hospital in a statement. Quote, the microbiome produces neurotransmitters and neurotoxins which access the brain through nerves and the blood circulation. In return, the brain controls eating behavior while nutrients from our diet change the composition of the gut microbiome. This implies that changes in the brain and changes in the microbiome after weight loss affect each other. However, because the study looked only at correlations, not causations, correlation, not causation. So this happens and this also happens. Does not mean that they are connected. It just means that as this falls, the other one falls. Doesn't mean that it's because of this thing or because of that thing. So keep that in mind. The researchers still aren't sure exactly what drives these changes or why the brain and microbiome have such a degree of interplay. Quote, the next question to be answered is the precise mechanism by which the gut microbiome and brain communicate in obese people, including during weight loss. She's back up again. Said Liming Wang, a paper co-author and researcher at Beijing's Health Management Institute. Thank you. He asked what specific gut microbiome and brain regions are critical for successful weight loss and maintaining a healthy weight. Very interesting study. Now let's go look at the actual study right here. See all of the authors right here. All right. You can kind of see objective intermittent energy restriction is an effective weight loss strategy. However, little is known about the dynamic effects of IER on the brain gut microbiome axis. So here's boom. Results show that IER longitudinally reduce the activity of obese-related brain regions at different time points, including the inferior frontal orbital gyrus and the cognitive control circuit, the putamen in the emotion and learning circuit, and the anterior cingulate cortex in the sensory circuit. IER longitudinally reduced E. coli abundance across multiple time points while elevating the abundance of obesity related these things. Correlation analysis reveal longitudinally correlations between gut bacteria abundance, alterations in brain activity changes, and conclusions. There was dynamical alterations of BGM axis, the communication of E. coli with specific brain regions during the weight loss under the IER. So what does this mean? A lot of mumbo jumbo, a lot of probiotics and bacteria that I can't even pronounce the name of. So what I'm thinking is happening is that we're having a thing where our very body is kind of signaling to the brain, because what they were doing in the study is kind of crazy, the amount of calories that they were dropping these people down to. Now, it had great results. Now, when I first read the article title, I thought that they were using intermittent fasting. So they were using fasting, basically saying you're not going to eat for 24 hours. You're not going to eat for 8 hours of the day. You're only going to eat between 2 and 6 p.m. Like that kind of stuff. But what this is actually saying is basically we're going to cut your calories down, and we're going to do it over a long time period. This entire study was 2 months. So it wasn't like a 2-week thing where you are fasting for 8 hours on one particular day and seeing how that affects your gut microbiome. No, this is something that they did over the course of 2 months, and they had results in these people losing weight, but they also had results in the bacteria that was inside of these people's guts. And then also the right here it says they reduce the activity of obese-related brain regions. So there are parts of the brain that are associated with things such as your appetite and your metabolism. And I mean, you can just see cognitive control circuit, emotion and learning circuit, and the sensory circuit. So these different portions of the brain where you're going to have different um parts being poked and prodded and having different outcomes in the body. So some parts of the brain are used to help with coordination. Some are meant to deal with emotions. Other are meant to deal with motivations and the way that our bodies actually process fats, carbs, and protein. All this stuff. Very, very interesting stuff. I don't know exactly uh, any other type of conclusion that you could really regard from this. I mean, you did see in this other Newsweek article that did say that they are pretty pretty out in the open. I mean, we'll read this quote right here. The gut microbiome is thought to communicate with the brain in a complex two-directional way. The microbiome produces neurotransmitters and neurotoxins, which access the brain through nerves and blood circulation. In return, the brain controls eating behavior while nutrients from our diet change the composition of the gut microbiome. So your gut is sending signals to your brain saying, yo, we got a lot of E. coli up in here. We got a lot of whatever. We're eating a lot of beef, so we have a lot of this particular um bacteria feasting on it. And then say you have a week where you're eating McDonald's every day, it's going to change and it's going to send signals over to your brain through neurotransmitters and neurotoxins. And then the brain in return controls the eating behavior to say, ooh, my gut isn't really liking the fact that I'm having Burger King 5 days a week, so I'm gonna have fruit the rest of the week, or I'm gonna have 2 meals a day, or I'm gonna fast every morning for 6 hours. I can tell a quick story. Yesterday at work, they had I mean, they had what did they have? They had my mother's favorite dark chocolate nonpareils. They also had I think was chocolate chip muffins. The actual muffin was not just like the regular bread. It was just it tasted like it was almost oatmeal. So it was, I guess, oatmeal chocolate chip. There was no raisins or anything in it, but it was very good. But let's say I had that for 6 days in a row. And then on a day like today, what I had for breakfast was I made Kodiak pancakes with skim fat-free milk and some liquid egg whites in it as well for pure protein. Because I started for the first time today to do that instead of actually using eggs, because with the eggs, part of the thing I don't want is the fat. I don't really want too much fat in my diet. I want to keep the calories low because your boy is starting to get a little on the chunky side. Apologies for the jump cut. Now we have Carmela up and at him, so we'll hopefully get through another story before she starts crying and whining. But yeah, just put some final thoughts on this. I know I'm kind of jumping in here with a little jump cut right here. Uh, Final thoughts. One, I do think that, and I've talked about this on the radio before, KDKA radio. You can listen on the Odyssey app. You can listen wherever you get your podcast. You can listen if you're in the Pittsburgh area and you want to tune in 100.1 FM and AM 1020 KDKA. Online as well, they have a website, KDKA Radio. One of the things I have talked about is if you say, like last night is a good example because I talked about the muffin and the dark chocolate nonpareils that I ate. Let's say I had way too much of that. Like I had like 1,500 calories worth of that. And I already had dinner and then I had a breakfast that morning as well. So I was way over my total daily calories. And I felt it. I felt a little bloated that next morning. What I've done is I wait until pretty much the last possible moment. If I can get a bowel movement, perfect. If not, I wait until I start getting very, very hungry. And then I'll have my first meal of the day. Like today, I said I had a meal basically at like 11:30, close to 12 o'clock almost. And I feel great now. Before that, before getting up in the morning, I was feeling a little bloated, a little bit of water kind of flowing in my body a little bit. I didn't feel super good, like I could go on a 3 mile run. I felt kind of bloated. And so by waiting to do that, I let my body flush out. I let a bowel movement or two get through me. Drinking water, and I'm took my dog on a walk, so I'm getting some activity in, and then I come back and I'm feeling good. And then that's when I have my first meal. So that's something that I've done that I would imagine has a good outcome and a good helps out my gut as well. And hopefully in return the gut sends those signals up to my brain saying we should do more of that. And it's something that I've done many times because there are times where I just go off the rails. Some weeks it's multiple days a week where I go off the rails, but I do my best that following day to wait until I get really, really hungry, and then I'll have that meal just so I can give my body a couple of extra hours to digest that food, process it before I put anything else in my body. And that makes me feel better. And it also, I think, helps overall with just the amount of calories I'm eating. Because if you're just like, and I talked about this as well, it's not like your body resets to 0 calories at the beginning of every day. If you eat something at 11:59 p.m., and then you want to have another meal at say 8 a.m. the following morning, that 11:59 p.m. meal from the previous day is still inside of you. You don't necessarily have to eat at 8 a.m. You can wait until 11:30. You could wait until noon. You could wait until 1. That food is still going to be digesting and processing in you. Now, if you're trying to gain weight and you're trying to put on a lot of muscle, I would advise you to at 8 a.m. the following morning to eat as well. Because if you're trying to pack on the pounds and pack on as many calories as you possibly can, it would be smart to do so. But for most people, they're either trying to lose or maintain weight. So if you're going to pig out and you're going to eat super late at night that following morning, just wait a couple of extra hours and see how it makes you feel once you have a little bit less food in your system. But that's just kind of my advice. Stay safe out there, man.